Recently, some of my favorite games have been getting remastered. From games with sexy blonde cheerleaders to JRPGs, and even a Might and Magic puzzle game. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most influential remasters to come out to this date. The artistic, time-manipulating puzzle game that changed the industry. Yes, I know that sounds like I'm giving the game some hand relief, but this really did help in changing the gaming industry as a whole, specifically the independent scene. While this game might not be a household name known by all gamers, it is still one of the most important games in games media. So put in your earbuds and relax like you're listening to your favorite mic-pumping ASMR streamer and listen to what I have to say about Braid. I'm going to start out by saying that Jonathan Blow is the man. This guy, while he may not have single-handedly created Braid, he is a massive reason why it exists. From programming to business strategies, he designed the game from concept to completion. We're talking he designed most of the code, wrote the story, and came up with the concept himself. This is his game. Whenever you see someone talking about Braid, it's him. He is the face of Braid and Number None Studios. This is all thanks to Xbox, specifically Xbox Live Arcade. Now, while Xbox Live Arcade and its Summer of Arcade should be a video in and of itself, while Xbox Live Arcade started in 2004, it didn't start to hit its stride until 2008, including incredible titles like Geometry Wars 2, Castle Crashers, and of course, Braid. There's so many games on this list that I just want to play right now. I mean, oh god, this is my childhood. Xbox gave many of these small studios the opportunity to make the games that they wanted to make and showcase on a large platform with Summer of Arcade, with a decent proportion of these studios being bought up by gaming mega corporations. One of them was Studio None, led by Jonathan Blow. Taking opportunity by the balls, Jonathan Blow used his intense talent and dedication and years of experience to make a game that he wanted to make. See, at a young age, Jonathan Blow was already programming games, making his own Pac-Man even. He was very passionate about games, and the games industry as a whole, going to college and double majoring in computer science and creative writing.
In college they teach you a very different kind of programming than you're gonna develop on your own. I mean, they communicate a body of knowledge, and some of that knowledge gets you further than you were, and some of that knowledge is, let's say, limiting or wrong ideas that are based on assumptions about how things should be that don't necessarily hold very well in games.
After that, he just went all over the gaming industry, working on almost every game that mattered. Games like Doom. Never working at any company for very long, usually 4 to 6 months.
I was a consultant for a while, and I worked at random game companies for periods of between 1 and 6 months each. So I was at Oddworld for a little bit. I was actually at Ion Storm Austin for a little bit, and I did some stuff on the engine team. Some little bit of my code may have ended up shipping in like Deus Ex 2 or in Thief 3. I did some weird business stuff. So when Harmonix was gonna get bought by MTV, I went and reviewed their code for MTV to make sure there weren't legal landmines in it or whatever.
Honestly, after the many podcasts I've listened to, Jonathan Blow is basically a living fixture of the history of video games. Hearing him talk about the industry back in the day and what it's become now is honestly refreshing and insightful. This man was around back in the days of the Commodore 64, and he's still making games now. He made a game as recently as 2016 with The Witness, before their most recent game, Braid Remastered. That's what we're playing right now. This is honestly a very condensed version of his history because he's been a part of so many documentaries, and he has such an intricate history with the gaming industry. These are just a few reasons why he might be the face of indie gaming in and of itself, and has so many appearances in indie game documentaries. Xbox Live Summer of Arcade is kind of a canon event for the independent gaming industry, with it introducing games like Braid. And I know, this isn't hyperbole, this is a fact. You can play devil's advocate all you want, saying shit like someone would eventually have done this. And maybe that would have been true, but you wouldn't be going through the indie game revolution that we're going through right now if it wasn't for Jonathan Blow's contributions to the industry. Legitimately doing research for this game was inspirational. I haven't enjoyed doing research for a video this much since Jurassic Park Trespasser and Azora's Wrath. You should go back and watch those videos too, that's all I'm saying. Braid is a puzzle game that is all about time manipulation. Braid was designed around the fact that you could reverse time, kind of like a certain Ubisoft title, Prince of Persia, a game that came out around the same time. They looked at Prince of Persia as inspiration. To say it nicely, Jonathan didn't exactly respect the shortcuts that Prince of Persia took. It was more into actually simulating reversing time and exploring time being bi-directional with his game. So how does Braid replicate reversing time without the shortcuts? Braid records every single frame. That is how Number None Studios actually replicated reversing time. The team ended up focusing on compressing the information to make it workable with the system. At least, that's what I got from the GDC conference. Speaking of which, this is one of the reasons why the game's a 2D side-scroller. It's way easier to simulate time travel here than in a 3D game like Prince of Persia. By the way, I love Prince of Persia, but after 15 or so hours of listening to podcasts and watching documentaries about Braid, Jonathan Blow and indie gaming in general, I can see where he's coming from. Recording all this information was made even harder when Jonathan Blow wanted to make the game run at 60 frames a second. Unlike... well... But don't worry, AAA gaming companies still can't live up to this insanely difficult standard. Thanks, Jedi Survivor. Braid used inspirations like Super Mario Bros. For more than just its simplistic, streamlined playstyle. Mr. Blow also used this inspiration for enemies and level design, using similar concepts of Goombas, cannons, and collecting puzzle pieces to make Braid a puzzle game instead of a platformer. That inspiration even affected Jonathan's creative process. I've always wanted to talk about this, by the way. Actually being inspired. See, actually being inspired isn't, I watched Star Wars, I thought I'd make my own Star Wars with blackjack and hookers. That's how you get most of Disney Star Wars. Mostly is a word I use because Season 1 of The Mandalorian was inspired. The Mandalorian was inspired to look and feel like an old spaghetti western, taking inspiration from the legendary director Sergio Leone, the man who pioneered the entire genre with his trilogy of movies, A Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Otherwise known as the Man with No Name trilogy. The Mandalorian character is just a man with no name, Clint Eastwood, in space. And his main story and themes were inspired by the manga/films of 1970s Kazuya Koiko and Gozeku Kojima's Lone Wolf and Cub. To put it simply, Lone Wolf and Cub was a tale of a powerful Ronin and his 1-year-old son surviving the assassination attempts of the Yuri Yagul. I have butchered that name. This is the main story thread, the core of The Mandalorian, and the baby he saves, alongside many other inspirations and ideas that The Mandalorian used for each and every episode. Speaking of Star Wars, even George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, was inspired by the Japanese film creator Akira Kurosawa and his film The Hidden Fortress, the same director and movie that inspired Sucker Punch's Ghost of Tsushima. He was also inspired by 2 book franchises you may never have heard of, Lord of the Rings and Dune. Hell, the 1940s version of Flash Gordon, the TV series, is apparently where he got the famous crawl from. That is what actual inspiration looks like. So why is this important, you ask? Braid's look, feel, and story were inspired by more than just Mario games on the Super Nintendo. It was inspired by Italo Calvino. See, John is an avid lover of books, using works like Italo Calvino's The Cosmic Comics collection as a base for the story. The look and gameplay changes between worlds because it was inspired by the books of Invisible Cities and Einstein's Dreams. Now, while I'm actually too fucking stupid to discuss the story aspects with you and plot details of Invisible Cities, I can tell you it was used to create the gameplay and puzzles of Braid's 6 worlds. Because Invisible Cities was all about the travels of Marco Polo and his journey across Asia, but with more fantastical accounts of these cities. Italo Calvino's depiction of these cities is what inspired each world, with each city having their own rules and culture. John wanted each world to be unique while still focusing on the core mechanics of reversing time. World 2 is all about being basically a tutorial level, showcasing Studio Nun's outside-of-the-box approach to puzzles and gameplay. From their use of enemies not just being obstacles, but solutions to puzzles. Something the devs talk in great detail about in the commentary. Seriously, if you're someone who wants to get into game development, I heavily recommend buying this game. And the puzzles, holy shit are they so good. I'm just going to talk about one of my favorites and the reason I've remembered this game for 10 plus years. So in each world you have to collect a bunch of puzzle pieces. In World 2, you have to collect 2 very specific puzzle pieces. When you connect them together, they create a platform. This platform is used to allow you to get to another platform that holds one of the other puzzles. Now, you have an enemy walk onto one of these platforms, remove it so he falls to the ground, and then follow him to the last puzzle piece to jump off of him and collect what would probably be the last puzzle piece of World 2. That's the kind of outside of the box level of thinking you need to complete Braid, especially if you even consider approaching the secret ending. And after this, each world starts to incorporate a different factor that none of the other worlds implement or rarely implement. One element is this green aura. This green aura stops Tim from using his time reversal powers on these objects, meaning you can't return them back to the places they were. One puzzle involves you trying to complete the obstacle course of enemies without reversing time because the platform has the green aura around it and you need to get there before it locks off a puzzle piece. One of the most creative and weird worlds involves almost YouTube-like playback function. Time only moves forward when you move to the right. Time moves backwards when you move to the left, meaning when you destroy an enemy while moving to the left, they will return or usually not even be hurt at all. meaning when you jump on an enemy going to the left, usually they don't even take damage. So, hypothetically, if you run up to a door with a key and you're still moving to the left, the door never opens, and you use the key anyways. One of my favorite puzzles in this world is the one that the commentary crew spoke so much about. Except here it has a completely different context. Remember, you have to kill every enemy from left to right. If you move too far to the left, you will revive every single enemy. So no matter what you're doing, do not use that ladder. The world that stumped me was the most involved, leaving time shadows. The time shadows would do everything you did before you reversed time. That includes collecting puzzle pieces for you, especially the ones you can't reach yourself now. I'm just going to spoil this one for you, so maybe skip a couple minutes ahead. This is the reason why I was stumped for the longest time. You even have to go and watch a walkthrough just for this puzzle. Here, you use the time shadows to create platforms so the Goombas can walk across. And sometimes that's not what you want to happen. You want them to fall through, so you have to the time rewind to get rid of the shadows. Then the Goomba will fall to an area that you need him to go to, and you will follow him all the way to the end. But jumping on him doesn't let you reach the last puzzle piece. So how do we get him there? Let's just say, what if I let him jump off of my head? Now he's got a higher arc. I rewind time, he jumps off my time shadow, and I jump off of him, finally reaching the puzzle piece. One of the last worlds allows you to create a time-slowing aura anywhere you want to place it. And it's a physical thing in the environment. One puzzle involves you putting it on an elevator and racing it to the bottom to dodge cannon fire. And if you're actually able to collect every single puzzle piece in the game, you're able to enter the final world. Spoilers from here on out. Because the final world isn't exactly about testing your puzzle solving capabilities, or your skills, timing, none of that. It's more about telling a story. In this world, time is always in reverse, except for the fact that Tim, our protagonist, is the only one who can disrupt anything here. The good thing about time always being reversed is that enemies don't die, so you can use them as a kind of ladder to reach higher locations. This leads to the final puzzle of Braid. This is what made the game famous. I haven't talked about it much, but this game has a very good story that's mostly told through gameplay, storybooks at the beginning and end of each world. As you enter the final location, you see a man covered in armor chasing a princess. Your princess. And you're trying to save her, or save each other. You're helping each other progress to the end, while a wall of fire chases both of you down. There are near constant close calls with you almost dying the entire run. Wait, why is she laying down? That's right, did you forget the mechanic of this world? Everything is going back through time except you. So what actually is going on? Well, Tim is creepily standing outside of her window. With time now going forward, we actually get to see the context for what's going on. The princess is trying to stop you. You're chasing her. That armored man, that's the real hero. He's saving her from you. Remember, Braid is inspired by Italiano Calavano's work on their Cosmic Comics collection, his work on Invisible Cities, and another book called Einstein's Dreams. And I forgot Super Mario Brothers. You were playing as Tim. Tim has a princess, and he has failed her multiple times. See, Tim made lots and lots of mistakes. Maybe that's why he is able to rewind time. But that's if you take this as a realistic linear story. I would look at this as a surrealist David Lynch style film. with dreamlike qualities. It is based off of Einstein's dreams. So maybe you don't have to take everything as an exact story, and more along the lines of the surrealist hypothetical storytelling of a relationship that went bad. Going down any of these paths can lead you down a rabbit hole where, let's be honest, there's a lot of videos deconstructing the story of Braid. Some people believe the princess represents the nuclear bomb, and this game represents the creation of the atomic bomb, making Tim this world's version of Oppenheimer. I personally believe that he is this world's interpretation of Oppenheimer, but instead of atomic bombs, it's time. I don't have much to go off of with this. It's not supposed to make complete sense, especially since some of the later puzzles, especially at the end, show that Tim might not be a reliable narrator. And when the alternate ending involves the princess blowing up like the atomic bomb with the atomic bomb sound effect, it's hard not to think that the atomic bomb is something that the game's representing, especially when the first imagery is what looks to be a city on fire. But remember, this is a game meant to be artistic by a creative writer and his artistic ideas of relationships. This is a game that's all about being very, very artistic. And almost everything is meant to and should be up to your interpretation. The reason I'm making this video is because I've always wanted to talk about Braid, the artistic inspiration for indie development as a whole. But it's also not doing well in sales, which is a little sad for Studio None and Jonathan Blow as a whole. So, at the end of all this, the video is kind of an advertisement for why maybe you should check this game out. They put a lot of love into this remaster, even creating new levels and worlds for you to explore through the commentary, which is incredible. Listening to Jonathan Blow and his team talk about The Witness is how games should be made, honestly. They put a lot of love and work into these games, and I would really love to see these games get the love they deserve. Now, if you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me your thoughts on everything that I've said in this video, and tell me if you check out some of my other videos in the future. Thank you, and have a nice day.